Hi, let's talk about electional astrology. Why I don't do it and what do I do instead? First, what is electional astrology? What is to do an election in astrology speak? Is to find the best time to start or do something. The best time to marry, to start building a house, a castle, a city, to open up shop, to begin commercial or business partnership, anything. And how is it done usually? Usually, what astrologers do and what I very rarely do, and I do less and less, is I pick up the natal chart of people related to the thing in question. If it's a business partnership, the partners. If it's a shop, the owner of the shop, and so on and so forth. And the client gives you an interval. Within that interval and within parameters connected to the thing itself, the context, the concrete situation, you find a chart, an astrological chart, an astrological moment in which the chart is in itself positive and in relation to the birth charts I've just mentioned, also positive. That is, I to elect the opening of a restaurant, for example, I have to find within the time frame the client gave me a chart that in itself, a chart for the moment of opening and for the place of opening the restaurant, that in itself looks nice. There is nothing terrible happening in them, and the houses involved with the restaurant, the house 5, house 1, house 10, are ruled by strong planets and benefics, etc., and the houses itself, themselves are assisted by benefics, and the malefics are weak and not afflicting anything, etc. And at the same time, when we compare this chart with the chart of the owner of any of or of any other relevant person, it is also good. It doesn't afflict anything in the birth chart of the person. Uh, and I hate to do it. And my teacher does too, which is good because I like when someone better than me thinks like I do. It makes me more comfortable. And what he does and what I do, because I learned from him, is to elect a moment using horary. And when I learned that, I started doing it just because it worked. And to be honest, because it's less, there's less work to do. You don't have to deal with a lot of charts and moving a chart across days. You just use one chart. Um, but I have the tendency when I learn something from a wise person like John Frawley and I see it working, I just try to make it work. But I cannot help but think about it. Why does it work? Why do I like doing that and I don't like doing an election? Is it just laziness? It is just because I don't want to work more. And no, nowadays I think that in principle, according to the principles of the art, electing with horary is sounder, is more appropriate, sorry, uh, is um, describes the situation better than using electional astrology. Why? First, because electional astrology can, I don't mean to say that it doesn't work, right? It does. Electional astrology does work, and there are countless examples over the centuries. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it might induce the astrologer and the client into thinking something will be good without it being good in reality. Why? Because you're dealing with the transits for that time. If, to use the same example, if I try to open up a restaurant in March, between the end of March and the beginning of April, I had to deal with the planets as they are in the signs they are from the end of March to the beginning of April. I have some latitude. I might wait for the moon to change sign into a sign that fits better what I intend. Maybe one or two planets change sign or go uh, uh, far enough from something bad or close enough to something good that I want. But I cannot wait for Saturn or Jupiter or Mars or even the Sun, in some cases not even Mercury or Venus, to change sign. And so if you have Sun in Aries, you have Sun in Aries. So the situation, quote unquote, is the situation of the sky at that time. But the situation of the sky at that time doesn't prevent anything. Good restaurants and bad restaurants, good partnerships and bad partnerships happen under any set of symbols in the sky. That's the nature of life. The symbols are there to symbolize things below. They are not forces preventing things from happening. That's why transits are very bad for prediction. People use transit for post-diction to talk about events that have already happened in social media. It's very, very, very rare to find astrologers that actually predict things using transits. And because you're using the planets in an, as it were, artificial chart, you're just setting the chart for when the person wants to do the thing they are asking about. You have to improve it, advancing and changing things until you find a good moment. But that good moment is not linked essentially to the thing you're building. It's linked. It's linked to the things that are happening in the sky. Yes, it says something about the quality of the moment. That's why election works, but it's not connected intimately to the thing. So if you find an excellent moment, you might be fooled into thinking that means the thing will be very successful, and it's not true. It's true that you found a good moment. That's all. And because you can become lost in the technicalities, you have I don't know. Let's suppose uh, we have Saturn in Aries, and Saturn in Aries is a bad thing. So we have to keep it away from the angles and away from anything relevant in the chart of the person who hired you. So you find a window in which Saturn is far from the angles and it's not connecting anything in a birth chart or connecting anything in that chart from, say, 9 to 10:42 p.m. or 9. Let's use a better time. 9 to 10:42 a.m. Um, by hearing and seeing that, you might be fooled into thinking that something happens between 8:59 and 9 a.m. and 10 whatever I said, I don't remember, 10:15, 10:45, I don't know, and 10:46, that changes drastically everything. And that a thing that if you if you open your restaurant 8:40, it will be a disaster. But if you opened it at 9:10, it will be a huge success. And while the quality of time changes, it changes. It doesn't change that abruptly or that um, uh, sto- I've forgotten the word. I think there's a better word for that, but stochastically, without any connection between what happened before. And time, quality of time is very similar to quality of space. Space has difference in quality. You can see that. You cannot go up or down the same way you go side to side. I cannot go freely here because I have these shelves here and the books, but I can walk there if I pass my table. Space is full of qualitative changes, but it's there are a connection between the changes, and there's connection between the changes in time. Time changes in quality, but it's not as if uh, every period of time is isolated chamber, and then we have another isolated chamber, and then we have another isolated chamber. If technique says that you have to open it between 9 and 9:10, technique is wrong. This is not magic. This is not sorcery. You don't have to wait for the stars to align and light candles and talk to the spirits and to the demons and to whatever you want to so that magical moment can be born. No, you're just finding the best moment, the the moment the moment with the best quality, and it has to have some leeway. And uh, electional astrology fools you into thinking there is no transition, there is no leeway. You have a very definite and set limit. And the last thing is that electional chart, you cannot describe with detail the things that matter organically in the thing. How do you judge, quote unquote, an electional chart? Well, a restaurant is something related to 10th house because it's work for the person. So we have to look at the ruler of the 10th. It's also a fifth house matter. So you look at the fifth house. We also look at the first house because it's the querent, and the seventh house because it's the client. But this is not a birth chart for the restaurant. It's not organically linked to it. So any of these planets, if anything happens to them, you get a picture of the quality of the time, but not of the thing. Meaning, this chart cannot tell you if choosing the right time will work, because in real life, some things depend on the best time. Some things work out regardless of the time you open. Some things don't work out regardless of the time you open, because there might be problems in the way they are. If your technique cannot tell you, it doesn't matter. The product is bad and it won't work regardless of the time you open your restaurant. The technique has a flaw, and electional astrology has this flaw. Has this flaw. You cannot do that. It gives you an optimal time. On the other hand, if you're doing electional, if you elect in a moment with hurry, if you're asking the question, when is the best time to open my restaurant? Or an even better question, is it best to open my restaurant before, I don't know, before we appeared in the TV program or after we appeared in the TV program or anything like that? Because the question itself captures the situation. The chart reflects it, and if you choose correctly, it depends on the technique, on the skills of the astrologer, one of the seven planets will signify the restaurant. So, what happens to that planet is what is going to happen to the restaurant. You can see if it's getting better, when it's getting better, if it's getting worse, when it's getting worse, or if electing won't change anything. You might look at the chart and say, it doesn't matter, it will be good anyway, or it doesn't matter, it will be bad anyway. The planet has a symbolic connection to the restaurant. You can see the actual thing, and things happening in the horror chart have to make sense in the situation. Things happening to the planet reflect things happening in real life to the thing, to the restaurant. So it's not only easier, it is more organic. It is more descriptive of the situation. So I prefer to use it not just because it's less work, but because it's best work.